Hey, what's poppin', y'all? It is your boy, it is Guard E3, and welcome to the morning show. Of course, joining me at this time, the real star of the morning show, ladies and gentlemen, the man who carries it every week. He's been Mo Betta. How you doing, Mo?
I'm doing great. Look, we're like athletes. We're doing a back to back. Just killed it last night on and one, and here we go again on the morning show. Appreciate everybody that's joining us. Let's get it.
Absolutely. And speaking of and one, Mo, did you see the report that just came out about Kevin Durant? It's something that we actually called on and one. He's upset about being involved in trade rumors, so now there's rumors that he's going to be looking to head out this next upcoming summer.
Yeah, look, we called it, but I think that this is a domino effect. They weren't able to move him. They're not going to win a title this year. He is going to be a year older. So I think they weren't able to move him. He's going to want out. I think they're going to want to move him in the offseason as well. So it I think both sides are thinking the same way, but it might get ugly. Hopefully it doesn't. But yeah, of course he's going to be upset. Um, I'm sure. I'm surprised he hasn't taken to social media to voice his opinions. Maybe he will eventually, but I think if he's upset, the question is, can he zone in and focus and try to help Book and company make a playoff push?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough, and I think he will, and I think he'll say all the right things like, "Oh man, it's all part of the business," and I don't mind, but yeah, I I think they'll make a playoff push. I think there'll be another early exit for them. I don't think they made any significant enough changes to the roster. And then this offseason, we'll see what happens with KD. But I genuinely do believe that Kevin Durant is up and out of there this offseason.
I think you're right. He he will find a way to lock in and try to make a push. I don't think he's going to go the Dennis Schroeder route and say this is modern day slavery. That was extreme. Look, and on a side note with the Dennis Schroeder thing, we talked about this on N1. Good player. He's been a good player a long time. But he, for whatever reason, he's the good player that no franchise falls in love with. The crazy thing is, remember when he was on the Lakers, I think the Lakers offered him like an $84 million deal. Remember, and he turned that down, like thinking there were greener pastures, and there wasn't. So he's made some. He made him. That might have been the only team, the Lakers, that tried to show him some real love, and he walked away from that. Like I said, he was very good for the Nets this season. Uh, I thought he wasn't as good for the Warriors, but he's been a good player because he has this unique gift. Brett Dennis Schroeder as a point guard, even now at I'm assuming he's around age 31 and 32, has one of the quickest first steps in the NBA. Even today, one of the quickest first steps. He turns the corner and he's gone. He's that quick. He's got that kind of burst, and yet traded from Golden State to Utah, gets to Utah. You know what? I don't even know if he got to pack his bags. Goes from Utah to where's he now, Brett?
Detroit.
Right. I I don't even know if he landed in Utah. If he landed in Utah, Danny Ainge was probably waiting for him in the airport. Like, you don't even need to. You just need to get a different flight. You're actually heading to Detroit. Like, that's the man got double traded. That's insane.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. But yesterday, let's be real, it was a lot about the NFL, and that's kind of what I wanted to discuss. We had some awards last night, so and quite a few we actually nailed here on the morning show just last week, but we'll still talk about them. And why don't we start off with the NFL award ceremony was last night, and I'm going to start with one that some people are, upset about, and I'll explain why they were upset because it's going to sound a little weird at first when I say it, right? Offensive Rookie of the Year belongs to Jaden Daniels. Now, why were some people upset about that? Because he was one vote away from being unanimous Rookie of the Year. Brock Bowers took one of his votes that prevented that from happening, and people were upset. So I know we both agreed that Jaden Daniels would win this award, but my
Yeah.
question, Mo, is are you upset at all that, Jaden Daniels didn't get a unanimous Rookie of the Year offensive?
I'm not bothered by that in the least. They got it right in the sense that he did win the award. He should have won the award, and he did. There clearly was someone in there that was voting that was like, you know what? I watched them both play. I think Bowers was better, and maybe they truly meant that. I think Brock Bowers is going to be a tremendous player in the NFL. Um, he didn't have a better rookie campaign than Jaden. It's by any metric, he didn't have a better rookie campaign. All you have to do is look at where the Redskins season ended, excuse me, the Commanders season ended. That was about what Jaden Daniels was able to do, the energy he was able to infuse into that franchise, and how he played with a poise of like an 8 or 10-year veteran. That was Jaden Daniels. So I'm not mad that he wasn't unanimous. I'm just glad they got it right overall.
No, I completely agree. But hey, what's up, Key? How you doing, Hannah? Thank you for joining the show.
What's up, Key?
Yeah, and you know what's funny? They actually found the guy on Twitter and asked him why didn't you vote for Jaden Daniels, and his response was, Brock Bowers had an all-time great season at a position that is not easy to succeed at right out of the gate, just like Daniels. Daniels won because of the QB bonus in today's game, but it's pretty clear that Bowers has a very strong case.
I don't think most QBs come right out the box and are great QBs or very like. I don't. I'm not saying any position is easy, but you're not going to sell me that playing tight end is harder than playing quarterback. That if that's your sell job, that you're going to take an L on that one.
No, absolutely. I do agree that going from college tight end to NFL tight end's real hard, but very much so is quarterback. So I didn't like the explanation, but I also understand why Brock Bowers did get a vote. I think all he had to say was, "Yeah, Brock Bowers came in and he was the best tight end in the league this year."
I would have went, and that would have been fine with me. But when he continued on and explained himself, he started sounding like Nico Harrison.
No, that's fair. I didn't like the explanation, but I actually got the vote. And if we, move over to defensive rookie of the year, it was Jared Verse of the Los Angeles Rams. Second place was Quinyon Mitchell, and Brandon Fisk was third. So, congratulations to Jared Verse, and credit to the Rams once again. We credited them for this last week, but to draft two rookies that finished in the top three, that's just wild, and that's just great drafting.
It's great drafted, and we talked about this. Competent front office, smart, patient front office. The Rams, they just did their thing. They hit on a lot of young players, and their defense is set up to be one of the best in football going forward.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree. And of course, comeback player of the year, Joe Burrow. Figured that was coming too. Even I I think I wanted Sam Darnold to win, but I kind of figured Joe Burrow was coming. So he had an absolutely terrific season. So congratulations to Joe Burrow on that one. I ain't even mad about it.
No, look, Burrow was amazing. There was some concern about him coming into the season with his wrist. Would he be able to stay healthy? He was pretty much an Iron Man throughout the season. Had a phenomenal year. But Cincinnati, for whatever reason, they get off to these crazy slow starts and they finish strong. Very similar to the Rams, just not as much success as the Rams. But Joe Burrow was phenomenal. I think this is well deserved.
Agreed. And another one some people were upset about. Darnold wasn't injured. That's why he didn't win it. Listen, he wasn't injured, but like surviving the Panthers and the Jets just might be a worse fate than most injuries. So come on. But kidding.
That's
but
a form of torture.
And this one people were upset about too because Coach of the Year, Mo. I saw a lot of Lions fans up in arms saying that it should have been Dan Campbell. But just as we called last week, Kevin O'Connell won Coach of the Year. And for anybody upset about it, I think it takes 3 seconds to figure out why Kevin O'Connell was the Coach of the Year. The Lions last year, expectation-wise, I think they still overperformed expectations. I don't think anybody expected a 15-win season out of the Detroit Lions. But I think that's less shocking than what the Minnesota Vikings did this year. Like, if you would have asked what's more likely, a Lions 15-win season or a Vikings 14-win season before the year started, I would have told you were crazy if the Vikings were winning 14 games. So I think that this was absolutely the right call. He took a team that was looking like a 7-8 win team and got them to 14. It was one of the better coaching jobs that you're going to see, regardless of sport. And this was a terrific call by the voters.
I think he's a deserving winner, and I have no problem at all with Kevin O'Connell. We called that one. I also mentioned that you could have made a strong case for Andy Reid. I know they're the defending Super Bowl champions, but it's because they're the defending, they're repeat defending Super Bowl champions, and they're not a high-powered offense. They're anything but that. And Andy Reid managed that team to the record that they managed that team back into the Super Bowl. So I think Kevin O'Connell is deserving, and I have no problem with it. But I thought Andy Reid should have got more love.
He did get third with 4 votes right behind Dan Campbell. I feel like Andy Reid's going to be cursed in winning Coach of the Year from this point on, because I feel like a Patrick Mahomes tax is very real in this scenario. I think he deserves all the love in the world, but I feel like some voters are like, yeah, but this guy has the best quarterback in the league. He's got, Spags as a defensive coordinator.
Right.
I feel like he's just going to get like that Kansas City tax. I'm not saying it's fair, but I feel like that's a reason why he's not getting more love.
So it's like being the coach of Jordan or LeBron, right? Like you're a good coach, but isn't, you know what I mean? Like they're gonna point out like, but you got that guy. That's a fair argument that he's got Patrick Mahomes, but I think Patrick Mahomes has been phenomenal again. But look at what they've been the last 2 years. Like the management, the play calling, that's Andy Reid. Like it's just amazing that they find a way to control tempo the way they do. And look, we can get into the Super Bowl, and that's going to be a key to that. But yeah, look, I have no problem with, like I said, Kevin O'Connell winning, because you're right. Nobody projected the Vikings to be in the playoffs, let alone win 14 games. That's coaching, that's culture. He deserves the award.
Oh, absolutely. And then assistant coach of the year did end up going to Ben Johnson. And second place, Brian Flores. Third place, Aaron Glenn. So
I'm right there. I think Brian Flores had a phenomenal year with that defense. They lost some players. It's not a star-studded defense, but he coached those guys up. He really did. Brian Flores was tremendous. That's a big part of the Vikings being as good as they were. Aaron Glenn was terrific as well. So yeah, I have no problem. I'm glad that those two guys got acknowledged. So that's great.
And then our defensive player of the year for the first time since 2019 went to a cornerback. Patrick Surtain
You've
walked
called that
away
one.
with, yeah, he was incredible. Like, it's rare that you can get your hands on a cornerback where you don't need to give him any safety help and he can just lock down one half of the field. But that's exactly what Patrick Surtain did. In many senses, he's the anchor of that passing game. He's the anchor of that defense. He allows you to just roll all the help over to one side of the field, and that side of the field is wherever he isn't, which is hard to find. So, congratulations to Patrick Surtain. He had one of the best cornerback seasons that we've seen in a while.
He is well deserving of this honor. Watching him play, reminds me a lot of Darrelle Revis in that he has the physical strength to play bump and run, but he has the quickness to adjust to any route or any change of route. He's unique. It wouldn't surprise me if he becomes the first cornerback to win DPOY more than once.
No, absolutely. I don't know about that one. Don't want to sound biased, but Zach Bond had a case.
He did.
I,
We did.
I don't. I'd say I don't even think that's a biased thing to say. I think it's. I think he for sure had a case.
Key, I'll
He
say it. You're being a little biased. Nah, I'm kidding.
I think he's a guy that nobody expected much out of. I thought they just thought rotational depth piece, and he put in a defensive player of the year caliber season. He absolutely has a case with what he did this year for the Eagles.
Agreed.
But it's all right because he did have an Eagle win an award. Offensive player of the year, Saquon Barkley. And this was the right call. I said last week I hope they do give it to Barkley and just not a quarterback because Barkley was well deserving and rightfully so, almost rushing for 2K yards. And I know this is a regular season award, but he's also, elevated their offense come playoff time. So just overall, I think this was the right choice for this award, bar none.
Great move, great pickup by Howie Roseman once again. Saquon brought leadership, he brought a different attitude, and he brought his talent to that great offensive line. Yeah, I don't even think this should have been a discussion. It's a runaway. My hope, my wish for Saquon Barkley, just as a selfish football fan going forward. No, I don't expect him to run for 2K every year, but I hope what I wish for him in his stint with the Eagles, more health, and I hope that he has a run where when he's with the Eagles, he puts up multiple 1,400 yard seasons because he's a great back. And what I want him to do is I want him to finish his career off strong to where he gets in that conversation with the other great backs.
Yeah, and I think it's coming, like I said, as long as he can stay healthy, which I think he will. I know that, people try to bring up his injury history on the Giants, but the big difference is in New York, he was the offense. He had to carry a huge load in terms of that Giants offense. On the Eagles, he doesn't have to carry as big of a load. Obviously, he's a mad big piece to that offense, but he isn't the whole offense, and I think that's just
Agreed.
huge for him staying healthy. And
No, I
plus,
agree.
that O line is one of the best in football. So a lot of the time he's not getting touched like until he's 5 yards down the field already.
It's a great offensive line. It's the best offensive line in football, in my opinion. I said it before. I think the Eagles are the best in the NFL on both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Hey, no, fair enough. And then controversy reigns supreme on this one. MVP Josh Allen won, and I'm sure you can guess a certain fan base that our good friend Jory would call the Featherbrains were not happy. Now, interesting side note, Josh Allen becomes the third quarterback to not be named to the All Pro first team and win MVP. The other two being it was John Elway in the 1980s, when Joe Montana was playing, and Air McNair in 1999. So I thought that was just an interesting side little fact. But congratulations to Josh Allen. And honestly, I I think this was the right call, Mo. This is the situation where I think Lamar Jackson had the better statistical season. I think that can't be denied. But kind of relative to what preseason predictions and just the state of the roster in general, I think Josh Allen does have a real argument that he is the best, and like maybe not the best statistically, but the most valuable player in football this season.
So I tend to look at it this way. Do I think Josh Allen is worthy of being the MVP? I do. Did he have a tremendous season? He did. Is he the most important football player on the Buffalo Bills? No question. So I don't have a problem with him winning the award. He's deserving of it. With the Lamar Jackson situation, what I would say is, though, he is your reigning MVP. And the only thing the reigning MVP did was have a better season than he had the year he won MVP. And it's not like his team was an 8-8 team. The Ravens had a terrific record. So I think Josh Allen is deserving. I would have voted for Lamar Jackson because I just think he was a better football player over the course of the year. I don't, again, no problem with Josh Allen winning. I think he's deserving of it. I think it's odd. Maybe it's Lamar Jackson fatigue, but I think think about what Lamar Jackson did, not just with what he did in the air, but what he did. Like, we talk a lot about Josh Allen and his running ability. He didn't have nowhere near as many running yards as Lamar Jackson. So I don't have a problem with it. I just would have voted for Lamar Jackson.
No, and that's fair. This is an award where if it would have went either way, I was perfectly fine with it. And it's almost ironic, right? Because the part I'm kind of finding funny is, so it almost seems like the Ravens fans are now saying, "Well, look at the stats. He was better than Josh Allen." But, and I think this might have to be a discussion going forward. But when Lamar Jackson didn't have as good as counting stats and counting stats as some quarterbacks last year, it was, oh, well, the stats don't really matter that much. Look at the record, look at the impact. So I kind of find it funny if that we're kind of flip flopping the argument from last year for some fans, and going forward, yeah, I would almost like to see just them stay consistent with standard, which I think they've actually done the past few years, in which they try to judge you based on the value that you add to your team. Like I said, if Lamar would have won this year, wouldn't have been mad. I do think he was a very well-deserving winner.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with. And look, I guess my thing is this: Josh Allen and the Bills got off to an amazing start, and I felt like after they beat Kansas City, it felt like the MVP race was over. And then when the Bills played the Ravens straight up, and it was a terrific game, but Josh Allen did win. The Bills did win. I think that basically, I think that ended the race. I was still rooting because I was watching what I was watching from both QBs, but I thought the race was over. To Keith's point, after the Bills beat the Ravens.
No, absolutely. Fair enough. And it's wild to think about it, right? Because that Chiefs game felt so early in the season, and almost like lock up that MVP so early is crazy. Being the only team to really beat the Chiefs this year, and I know they lost Week 18 to the Broncos. I don't care about the Broncos beating all their third stringers. Like, that doesn't move me, but it is impressive what he did against the Chiefs. But I almost don't like that, Mo, because it almost feels like the MVP is really just whoever puts together a strong stretch of games late in the season and kind of gets that recency boost, or just whoever has the biggest win. Like, I get it. It's important. You beat the Chiefs, but for a lot of people to, kind of have it locked up after that, I think it's pretty wild to me because I think Lamar had a strong case where he came on really strong at the end. But I don't think the MVP should be locked up after like a strong stretch of like 3 games or after a win against like Kansas City. I think that's pretty crazy.
No, I agree with you. But then I'm on another thought process too. I don't think the MVP should always go to the best quarterback. And that it honestly, Saquon Barkley should have been the MVP. That should have been the MVP. But they've turned the MVP into whichever quarterback puts up incredible stats, and Allen had incredible stats, as did Lamar, and they both were on winning teams. And really, it's weird because if you just go by stats, then Joe Burrow would have been our MVP. So I don't like it that it's been whittled down over the last decade or so, or even longer, to just being basically a quarterback award.
No, fair enough. Should the NFL have an award for quarterbacks? Yeah, it's called MVP.
No, Key, I'm with you. They should have a separate award, but that's what it's become. The MVP has become the quarterback award.
No, and I agree. I think that it shouldn't always go to quarterbacks, and it's almost more fun when it doesn't at this point because it's just such a surprise when a non-quarterback wins. We haven't seen it since 2012 when, Adrian Peterson won it.
Hey, when is an O lineman going to win it? Right? When is a guy like the great Jonathan Ogden? They go, oh, I mean, come on, didn't give up a sack, or I mean, when is a lineman going to win it? I know a D lineman can win it. Well, maybe a pass rusher, but when is that going to happen? Anytime soon? Not in this current NFL.
I almost feel like an offensive lineman would have to like pancake block your assignment on every single snap to even get into the finalist, and even then, it'd probably still go to a quarterback.
Probably.
Unfortunately, just O linemen are just so like underappreciated in these awards. It kind of sucks, like low key. Like if we went through, O linemen, like I'm sure I could have found some O linemen that should have been in contention for the offensive player of the year.
I think you're right. Oh, and the funny thing is, you're like they could have a great year, but they wouldn't have a chance to win. And probably the reason why is because it'd be the quarterback that they're blocking for, right? That guy will win. So I do think they're just vastly underappreciated. Again, I have no problem with the winners of all the awards. I just think that MVP is the default quarterback award. And you're right. When someone else breaks through, be it a running back, maybe a receiver one of these years or something like that, that's fun, and it's surprising because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, that wasn't the only thing announced last night, Mo. The 2025 Pro Football Hall of Fame class was announced, and there are 4 winners. We had Chargers tight end Antonio Gates is going to the Hall of Fame. And Eric Allen. This one near and dear to my heart. Packers legend Sterling Sharp is going to the Hall of Fame. And Jared Allen. And I love this. I love this selection. I'm so happy that some of these guys, especially that Sharp and Gates, got in. So, congratulations to all those guys. It's just completely well deserved.
Congratulations. This is a great class. I watched Sterling Sharp play. And he was a very unique wide receiver because he had the speed to get deep, but he did most of his work in the middle of the field. Like he did the routes that normally you would have other guys run. We called them medicine routes because if you caught the football, you were going to get smashed. And he did it. He did it at an elite level. Sterling Sharp was one of those guys that got better as he got older. His last 3 years in the NFL, Sterling Sharp scored 42 touchdowns. 42 touchdowns his last 3 seasons combined. That's how great a player he was. Shannon had a longer career, and Shannon Sharp's a terrific player in his own right. Sterling was a better player. That's how great a player he was.
No, absolutely. I think another interesting conversation to be had, though, Mo, is always, I think every year, not who made it, but who didn't. And I'm going to start with somebody that I think absolutely, think maybe should have made it. I know Reggie Wayne was upset he didn't make it. I think Reggie Wayne definitely has a strong case. But
can I just cut you off for a second?
Yeah.
The hardest position I feel in the NFL, even more so in this era, to make the Hall of Fame, even though they can put up insane numbers, is the wideout spot. Because there's so many great wideouts, so many guys, and there's so many guys who are good wideouts that put up huge numbers and great. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a convoluted. There are guys that have insane careers that are waiting in the wings to see if they get that call. Like you said, Reggie Wayne was tremendous. Like, I know a lot of people go, well, he played with Marvin Harrison. Right. And then when Marvin Harrison left, he got even better. He didn't miss a beat. Like, he had a Hall of Fame career in his own right. Marvin Harrison was one of the most amazing route runners I've ever seen. But in terms of pure hands, catching ability, Reggie Wayne had amazing hands. And I'm with you. He's more than the deserving. But man, that wide receiver spot is so log jammed of great players waiting to get in.
Absolutely. But another guy that I thought had a really strong case, Marshall Yanda, guard for the Baltimore Ravens. He's just arguably the best guard in the league for almost a decade. He was up there. He was elite pretty much his entire career. So I thought he had a strong argument to get in.
I'm with you, and I think if he misses out this time, I think he'll make it for sure next time. Just an elite lineman, dominant. I'm actually surprised that he wasn't part of this class. But if you look at this class, most of them it's an older class. I love this class, but I also look at the guys like you said that we're talking about that didn't make it. They're all deserving.
No, absolutely. And then just name a couple other before we get to the real two that people are pretty up in arms about. Adam Vinatieri, Earl Thomas, and Steve Smith Sr. all didn't make it.
So I think Vinatieri, I'm actually shocked because I thought he's arguably the greatest big game kicker in the NFL history, right? Like who's? I mean, there's guys who might have had better regular seasons, but how many kickers have had better postseason moments? Vinatieri was money for the Patriots, and he was good. He was really good when he went to the Colts as well. But I'm shocked that he didn't walk right in. That he wasn't part of this class. Earl Thomas, I think Earl Thomas was terrific, but I feel like Earl Thomas's prime was, I think it was kind of short. I think he'll get in, but I don't think that he was, I don't think he's a first ballot kind of guy.
No, fair enough. But I think the two that people were up in arms about, I'll save the most controversial for last. Luke Kuechly didn't make it. I know that the argument is he only played for 8 years, but I think when you play for 8 years and you're an All-Pro for 7 of them, and you are just arguably, and maybe not even that much, arguably the best middle linebacker that we have ever seen to play the game, I definitely think that there's a strong argument that he should have been first ballot.
I think Kuechly should have got more consideration, and I'm gonna put on my Niners hat and go this way. I think you can look at Luke Kuechly's career, and I think it's on par with my guy Patrick Willis, and Patrick Willis got in. So I'm with you 100%. Luke Kuechly should get. Maybe they didn't want him to be first ballot, but Luke Kuechly to me is a Hall of Fame football player.
Yeah, agreed. I think he'll just get in next year, but I almost feel like that they shouldn't have even waited with him because of how great he was, even if he only played for 8 years. And of course, Mo, the big one that people are up in arms about, Eli Manning. Now,
Are
let's
they?
be now
Are
let's
they? Are they? Are they up in
literally.
arms?
Oh, Twitter was upset, and there was just a report that came out that the All Pro, the Hall of Fame voters had vigorous conversations about Eli Manning. Now, to be clear, he's making the Hall of Fame. We know it's coming. I don't think that's any
Absolutely,
question.
absolutely.
But I think they got this right in the sense that he shouldn't have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Agreed.
Your
Agreed.
only claim to fame with that one, Mo, is well, he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl twice.
He did. He
And
did.
while that's impressive, and I do think that some people undersell Eli Manning's career by saying, he was an average quarterback for, most of it, which I think he was, better than that. I think that, yeah, he definitely should not have been a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No, I agree with you. And Eli is definitely better than an average quarterback. He was one of those quarterbacks that was of the high risk, high reward. Like Eli would throw the ball in tight windows, and he had the arm strength and talent to fit it in tight windows a lot of times. He also threw a lot of interceptions as well. I think what his claim to fame is, it's not just that he beat Tom Brady in the Super Bowl twice, is that he took the Giants on two phenomenal runs. Like those Giants teams, they weren't dominant teams, they weren't dynasties. They just went on separate great runs. And I think the committee's argument would be, outside of those great runs, those two great runs, in the Eli Manning era, the Giants weren't. And it's weird to say this, right? He led you to two Super Bowl championships, and it's hard to win one. But in the overarching resume of his career, they didn't do a lot. It's weird to say. I'm talking about a two-time Super Bowl champion, but the Giants, more times than not, in the Eli era, they weren't very good. They weren't very good. I think Eli Manning should make the Hall of Fame, but I think not allowing him to be first ballot, that's getting it right. I don't think you should be up in arms. I don't think he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and that's what I said last night when a couple times on Twitter. I was like, yeah, no, they got it right in the sense that he's a Hall of Famer, but he shouldn't be on the first ballot. I completely agree. And I figured we'd have a little fun this morning too, Mo, because, why don't we look at our potential 2026 Hall of Famers?
Cool.
These are the first, by the way, these are just the first time eligibles that we're looking at here. Here's a list of guys who are going to be eligible. And I think there's two guys on here that are no doubt about it should be first ballot Hall of Famers. And it's the first two names on this list. I don't think there's any doubt that Larry Fitzgerald should be a first ballot Hall of Famer. And if you think that Drew Brees is anything less, you're crazy. I'm sorry. You're crazy if you think anything less of Drew Brees than first ballot.
I'm with you with Larry Fitzgerald. He's one of my favorite players all time. Not just because of what he does on the field, but what he does off the field as well. Just the ultimate pro. And I think he's very unique in that he didn't have like burner speed, but yet when you needed to, he could pull away from people. Terrific in between the hash marks. Incredible catch radius in terms of making contested catches. Terrific route runner. Like I said, just one of my favorite players all time. The biggest compliment I could give to Drew Brees early on, you can appreciate this. When I started working with him, the NFL Genius and I, we were having a debate about quarterbacks. And he said that Joe Montana, if he played in this era, would be Drew Brees. And I said, right, he'd be Drew Brees, but he would just win more. And so I'm giving Drew Brees that compliment. I think Drew Brees is closer to being Joe Montana in terms of what he did, and he's more than deserving. I think Drew Brees should be first ballot. It should be a lock. He should just walk right in.
Yeah, no, and honestly, if it isn't a unanimous vote, I might have to go find the guy who didn't vote for him and throw hands with him, like, because there ain't no way.
It'll be the same guy that voted for Brock Bauer.
Right. I think so too. That would be the funny part. Some other names that are interesting, but I don't think make it. Philip Rivers, very good quarterback, not first ballot. Another name that, and then there's two more names on here that I think might, eventually probably end up in at some point, but don't make it on the first ballot. I don't think Jason Witten ends up in on the first ballot. I think it's questionable if he's even a Hall of Famer. But he was a name that people like to throw around yesterday. I think that's literally just kind of a cow who played for the Cowboys. So
yeah, let's throw it around and
tax.
Yeah, let's throw it around and throw it away.
I think Julian Edelman is an interesting one.
No.
I think it's possible that he sneaks in because of what he did in the playoffs.
I guess
I wasn't fond of the idea when I heard it. When people were throwing it around, I'm like, is he really?
He had great success in the playoffs, and he performed great in the playoffs. But there are a lot of great players, all-time great Hall of Famers, that they made their fame, and they didn't play on great teams. I don't think Julian Edelman should be anywhere near a Calvin Johnson. Calvin Johnson didn't. What is his playoff history? I don't think he has any. I don't. I think Julian Edelman is in the wide receiver world. He's the Robert Ory of wide receivers. If there's a Hall of Very Good, he should get in, but he shouldn't get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I really genuinely think that it's going to be the playoffs and it's going to be the rings that would propel him in. And
like, if he gets in, why wouldn't the guy that he replaced get in? Because actually, in terms of production, Welker put up bigger numbers than Edelman did. Well, I mean, you know what I mean? Russ Welker put up insane numbers compared to Edelman.
I'd say, and I think with the wide receiver position as is, I think there's just such a log jam, and I think there's like 20 wide receivers at least that probably are waiting that are better than Julian Edelman. So I think people are going to be surprised, and I'm sure this will happen every year, and it'll be like, he did so well in the playoffs, but I think the reality is, Mo, if Julian Edelman does get in, it'll be on one of his last tries. It's not going to be anytime soon.
Because you just mentioned earlier that Steve Smith Sr. didn't get in, right?
No.
And we both know Steve Smith was phenomenal. I'm not going to penalize him because he didn't really play on great teams a lot of his career. He was an amazing wideout, especially when you factor in his size. Like, he played bigger than his size, ran through tackles, incredible route runner. Like, I know Steve Smith's getting in. It might not be, he's not first back, but he's getting in. He was that great a football player.
Now, I do think there are two names that actually do eventually get in. I named the questionables, like guys who are getting mentioned, but I don't think get in. But there are two that I think do. The first name that's on here that I think for sure gets in eventually, Frank Gore. I think he had a level of longevity and production that just get him in. I know people are going to be like, well, he played for like 20 years or whatever. I know he didn't actually play for 20.
No, go ahead.
I'd say just to maintain the level of production he did for as long as he did, just unheard of longevity. And I think longevity is something that should be praised, not used against. And what he did, especially at a position that, probably arguably takes like the second most beating in the NFL behind, linemen.
Right.
Like, to do what he did, Hall of Fame, put him in.
And I would make the case that if you just look at his career as a member of the Niners, he probably had an outside argument to be in the Hall of Fame. Just on that career. but the fact that he played at that position and played well into his mid-30s, he shouldn't be penalized for still being a terrific player at a position where most players are done when they hit 30. So I'm with you. He's not going to be first ballot, but if Frank Gore doesn't get in, there's something wrong with that committee.
Absolutely. And then the other name I think for sure that probably should get in, and I might catch some people off guard with this name. I think Marquise Pouncey, the center for the Steelers, he was an elite offensive lineman for years. And I think he played at a high enough level that he definitely gets in at some point. He was elite as they come at that position.
I'm not arguing with that one. When he was at his peak before the injuries just kind of wore him down, Pouncey was dominant. You're right, 100% right. If we're gonna always like recognize some of the guys from the earlier years in the NFL, way back in the 60s and 70s, and go, they're Hall of Famers, but their careers were cut short because of this or that, then I think you still should have the same respect and give Pouncey the same type of flowers. Like, you knew what kind of player this guy was. He showed it to you week in and week out. You're right. He's not going to be first ballot, but somewhere down the road, I'm with you, Brett. I think Pouncey gets in.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And see, out of the rest of these names, I think the rest of these guys are just in the Hall of, very good or Hall of Good, but I don't really see any more locks for the Hall of Fame. Shady McCoy, very good. Don't think that, Hall of Fame.
Ooh, and he was terrific, but you know what? Just the same way the wide receiver thing is log jam, so is running backs. If Shady gets in, I want you to think about it from this standpoint. And I'm not telling you Shady's not he was a terrific player, but if Shady gets in, why wouldn't Tiki Barber get in?
No, fair enough. I know there's some, and then the rest of them. I know some people are going to float around some of these other guys that just have bigger names, but bigger names doesn't always equal Hall of Fame.
Right.
I swear, if I hear somebody try to make a Dez Bryant Hall of Fame case, I am going to lose it.
Dez was a terrific football player in a really short span. He did not have a Hall of Fame career. I don't even the most diehard Cowboy fan, if you're honest, you know damn well. Come on. You know damn well.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And the Cowboy tax is real. As soon as I saw people were like, well, Jason Witten should have been first ballot, I was like, no, he's not. If Antonio Gates wasn't first ballot, Jason Witten's nowhere near the first ballot. Like, what are we doing for that one?
And Brett, I don't want to sound like a hater. It'll sound like I'm being a hater. I don't know if you remember this. So there's an all-time Cowboy great. I think he got into the Hall of Fame. If it wasn't last year, it was a couple of years back. But he had been waiting in that Veterans Committee thing for like forever. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. There's the video of it when he finally got in, Drew Pearson. And this isn't a knock, but there are receivers that played in Drew Pearson's era who were better than Drew Pearson, and they didn't get in the Hall of Fame. They did not get in the Hall of Fame. I saw Drew Pearson play. I'm older than you. I saw him play. I don't think he was a Hall of Famer. I thought he was pretty good, but he wasn't a Hall of Famer. Like I think the Cowboy tax helped him. Like that dude was on his like last breath on the Veterans Committee, and even they weren't sure about him. And then I think they voted him in on pity. He got a pity vote. So yeah.
Oh, fair enough. And last 10 minutes, Mo, I figure why not Super Bowl's this Sunday, and I figure why not just throw out some predictions? We'll have a little fun with this one. I'll just start just because I already gave my prediction last night on Sideline to Sideline. I think that if this game's close, it's going to go to the Chiefs. The Eagles have to go for the knockout punch. If this game comes down to if it comes down to a decision, that decision is probably going to fall in favor of Kansas City. This game can't be close for them to win this game. They have to knock them out. To beat the champ, you got to, you really got to go for the throat. But that being said, I predicted that the Chiefs three-peat. I do think that they win a close one. I predicted a 23-21 victory for the Chiefs in an instant classic. And Mo, I would just love to hear what do you think happens this Sunday?
So Will and I talked about this on yesterday's show, and we pretty much echoed what you said, Brett. We said if the Eagles were going to win, that they had to stump the Chiefs, like not barely beat them in a shootout or in a tight defensive-minded game, that they had to come out and flex and establish we're dominant on defense and we're dominant on offense. And we haven't seen a blowout in a minute, but I think it needs to be one of those, I don't know, Eagles 31, Chiefs 13. You know what I mean? Like they need to knock them out. I'm with you. I said it yesterday. If it's a close football game, the Eagles have already lost. If it's a close football game, they've lost. And I'm saying that on, you don't want to be in a close football game with Patrick Mahomes, because more times than not, he's going to put you away. He's going to find a way to put you away. I think the Eagles are the better team on defense when it comes to the line of scrimmage. I think they're the better team offensively when it comes to the line of scrimmage and Saquon. I think they have better receivers. Like the Chiefs are only really better at one position. It's quarterback. But other than that, the Eagles are the better football team. I expect the Philadelphia Eagles, and I always say this, I don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. I expect the Eagles to come out, and I expect the Eagles to beat the Chiefs. And I think it's competitive early, and I think they impose their will on them, and they just beat them because they're the better, more talented football team.
And that's fair, right? Because it almost feels like I should be picking the Eagles, but I'm also tired of Patrick Mahomes making me look like an idiot every time I pick against him in the playoffs at this point.
Right.
Yeah, you're right though. It feels like the Chiefs only have one advantage on when it comes to this game, or I think they have two advantages, but those two advantages come at the most important positions, arguably.
Sure.
They have the greatest of all time at quarterback, or somebody who's in that debate, who's right up there already in the conversation with your Joe Montana, your Tom Brady's.
No question.
And especially if he three-peats, the conversation becomes really interesting.
Yeah.
And the other one, they have Andy Reid.
Big
somebody who's also in the conversation for one of the greatest coaches of all time.
I agree.
I'm going to be real worried if it's close. Mo, can you imagine the reaction in Philadelphia if it's a close game and we get another phantom call like the holding penalty from 2 years ago? Like, I feel like there's going to be some major PTSD if it's a close game, the Eagles get a stop, and then you see that yellow laundry on the field.
Look, and the NFL fan in me, I'm just talking about the selfish NFL fan, I want it to be a close game, right? I want a back and forth. I want a great game. I want a battle, but I want it to end on the backs of the players. I don't want to pass interference. I don't want a weird holding call. I just want to see the better football team make enough plays to win the football game. Period. Point blank. Period. Like matter of fact, last year's Super Bowl, look, my team came out on the short end of the stick, but I don't think we were robbed. I think the better football team won.
No, and I completely agree. And I think that was the one frustrating part of the holding call from 2 years ago. It's, do the Eagles win if there's no holding call? Maybe, but that's also something I would have loved to see, decide on the field. And it feels like that holding call, kind of robbed us of that outcome. Like it felt like, now I've always said that if you allow the game to come down to a, one call, then you probably didn't do enough to win that game regardless. I'm not a big fan of, blaming the refs for completely losing a game. If you let that game down to a ref call, there were probably other things you could have done to win that game before it got to that point. But it really felt like that just kind of robbed us of an iconic Super Bowl ending.
Well, don't forget though. Here's you just brought it up. Another motivation for the Eagles is what happened 2 years ago. You just brought it up. I have to think that there's enough guys still on that roster that know what that felt like, and would love to return the favor. So I look, everything's set up for the Eagles to win the Super Bowl. A matter of fact, I can simplify this. If both teams come into that stadium and they are who they are all year long, be who they've been all year long, the Eagles are going to be the Super Bowl champs. Period. It is going to take Andy Reid. It's going to take Spags. It's going to take Chris Jones in that defense. And Patrick Mahomes is going to have to manipulate their offense into making smart choices, finding ways to keep the Eagles' offense off the field and I'm not saying none of that's impossible because they're not the reigning two-time champions by fluke. They just find ways to win. But if the Eagles come out and just be true to their identity, the identity that they've had all year long, even if early in the game, Kansas City stonewalls Saquon. Let's say his first 6 carries, he gets 2 yards. You don't stop. You hand the ball to Saquon Barkley 26 more times. Your offensive line plays the way they've played all year. If you do that, I think it's hard for the Eagles to lose because at some point you can stonewall Saquon, and then 70 yards later he's in the end zone. That's who he is. That's who they've been all year long.
And I completely agree. And I think that's kind of almost the key for the Eagles, right? Like, how many times have we seen a team play to their strengths all year, but kind of trying to change strategy right off the bat against the Chiefs, to either throw them off or the Chiefs will prepare for their, let's say you have a strong run game, the Chiefs will prepare for it, and all of a sudden you'll try to throw 48 times even though you don't have the roster for it. I think the big key to the Eagles in this one, just stay true to you. It might be frustrating. Spags is going to have them ready. And I wouldn't doubt if they started out the game selling out to stop Saquon. They're probably going to stonewall Saquon to start.
Right.
But guess what? Just keep feeding the beast. And if they want to, continue to put 8 in the box to stop Saquon, all right, Jalen Hurts, go win us this football game. Because I think people undersell Jalen Hurts' ability to do that. We saw him have the best game of his career 2 years ago when the stakes were at the highest in the Super Bowl. And I think, he does it again. I think he has another big game. And I don't think he has to do a lot this game to win it, to be clear. I don't think he has to be Superman. But I think he has to make his timely throws. He's just got to make them pay for putting 8 in the box. And I think he will do that. I think he's talented enough for sure.
I will say this, Brett, that you brought it up. Let's go there. I think that is going to be Spags and their defense's strategy. I think they might put 9 men in the box. If you can take Saquon away, and I'm with you. I think Jalen Hurts is capable. He has terrific weapons on the outside. I think you're going to see a lot of man-to-man coverage. And I think Spags' strategy is to make it about Jalen Hurts. Like, I think Spags is going to go, if Jalen Hurts can beat us, if he can hurt us, if he can throw for 280 and 4 touchdowns or whatever it may be, then we're probably going to, like, I think they do take away Saquon and make it about Jalen Hurts. And the only question is Jalen Hurts going to look like the kid from a couple of years ago or not? Because that, I think if they're able to put it on him, and the Eagles are usually in 3rd and short, but in this Super Bowl, they're in 3rd and long. It's going to be interesting. It really is. I mean, there's so many ways this Super Bowl can play out. Another thing that Will and I talked about, and I think this is a possibility. What if the Eagles come out fast, Brett, and they are who they are? They're true to themselves, and they're up 17-3 early in the second quarter. Does that changes Kansas City's way of playing? Like, there's so many ways this can go. If it comes down to coaching, how do you not favor Andy Reid and Spags? You would. I'm gonna simplify it though. I think coaching matters, and coaching is why it'll be close. I still think the Eagles are the better football team, and that's why I'm going to pick the Eagles to come out on top.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. And I said I think this is going to be a fun one for sure on Sunday. Before we get up on out of here, Mo, you got anything you want to add in real quick?
Hey, thank you guys for joining us all this week with the NFL Genius, Brett, myself, Will. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you join the morning show, Coffee and Sports in the Morning, next week. Check out all the great shows we have at Wire to Wire Network. Don't forget about the Meaty Boys on Tuesday and one on Thursdays. We appreciate you guys so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely check us out on Tuesday. And hopefully you guys enjoy your Super Bowl weekend. And we'll see you next Monday. Mo and Chris will be back, and they'll tell you all about the Super Bowl. Until then, thank you very much, and have a good weekend.